No bailouts, no handouts, and no cop-outs.
NoSpinNewsSource.com.
What would you do if the President of the United States passed a law in which completely destroyed the Constitution?
And when I said change we can believe in, I didn't say change we can believe in tomorrow. Not change we can believe in next week.
Stay the course. We will stay the course. We're just going to stay the course. We're going to stay the course, and we must stay the course. We'll stay the course. This country will stay the course. We will stay the course.
But Alan Johnson says that blue skies are coming.
You can't say that about him. Black Bush, that is politically incorrect. Just give him more time.
That's a damn conspiracy theory.
Was at Nazi Germany, Kari, not here.
Oh yeah? Well, I have my own opinion. And I choose to believe that it's all going to be okay.
I am tired about people saying all these things about Obama that are not true.
But Alan Johnson says that blue skies are coming.
I think that's a crock.
I don't believe in conspiracy theories.
I never heard about no damn British Empire in school.
I don't care what you say. I'm going to vote for Obama anyway.
But I like Obama.
Hello folks, Kari Ilonummi here with your NoSpinNewsSource.com monthly report for February 2012. So as we sit here at this point in time and we see the cars still passing by, the hospitals, at least most of them, still operating, many grocery stores are still overall stocked with food, this and that, we have to ask ourselves, how bad is the situation? Is it really that bad? How bad is that bad? What do we have to do to get out of this predicament? So on and so forth. These are questions that we ask ourselves in our consciousness. As we heard many voices, many reasons, many beliefs, many excuses there before the British flag, by what would be and representing good, otherwise good people that are perhaps a bit confused and or just simply questioning through their confusion, what do we do? Where do we go? Do we support Obama? Do we support Jeb Bush and bring those guys back? Do we support Ron Paul? What do we do? So, what does have to be discovered and looked into, and will be addressed through time, through this website, and it has to be addressed, is the fact that old saying of too many chiefs and not enough Indians, as they say. And what does that mean? That means we have too many people that are otherwise good-hearted Americans are going in two different directions. Too many directions. We have to have unity. Many of us are undermining each other. Many of us are working to do good in our own hearts and minds, but are really only stifling and impeding upon the progress of ourselves and each other because we don't have the bigger picture perspective. So, with that in mind, we have to question, where is leadership? What are the policies that are going to be good for not just us today, but future generations as well? These are the things that must be addressed at this point in time. So, we go to this. So it's rather apparent that provocations are happening through what would be the United States military, but being orchestrated through, nonetheless, the British Empire, as what would be sending one of our warships to the Strait of Hormuz and driving it right through the middle of what would be the Iranian War Games exercise, as shown by RT right there. Now we'll just be discussing that more in detail later, but for now we'll go into some of these news articles. Obama signs executive order to freeze all Iranian government assets in America and U.S. banks abroad. So they're freezing their assets, they're taking over. Just like how there are special forces being moved to be on the streets of Iran and Syria, just as they are now, ultimately creating executive orders to freeze all assets and basically steal the money of these elements and whatnot, that it's rather apparent that war is on the table. World War III specifically. And one thing that has to be addressed, that I've mentioned before, and I'm going to focus and drive this point further and further in future shows, is that this whole issue of geopolitics has absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with what would be Syria, Iran, Libya, Afghanistan, or any other nation state on the planet. It has to do with World War III. It has to do with what would be a showdown of what would be the United States versus Russia and China. And Russia and China are fully aware of this. The citizenry are a lot more aware of this there too, more than we are. They are aware that there is a British Empire. And we'll be providing lots more evidence throughout this program to show you that the British are still an empire. So don't laugh at me too quick on that one before you think you know your history more than me. So, alrighty, we have what would be a U.S. embassy in Syria closes, and there have been Syrian embassies throughout the globe that have been attacked recently. Terrorist operations. And it's supposed to be the Syrians that are the bad guys, but yet it's the Syrians that are being attacked. It's the Syrians that are being invaded. It's the Syrians that are being the victim here. Syria isn't coming to the United States. United States is going and starting problems in Syria. Let's get that one straight. They never threatened to blow us up, did they? They had nothing to do with 9/11 or any other terrorist operation, did they? So what are we doing in Syria? What are we doing in going to Iran? What were we doing in Libya and still there, and all these other nations? It's all the guise of weapons of mass destruction, or now in the name of peace for what's going on around the world, because all these hardcore, mean governments that are trampling upon the rights of human rights and protesters throughout the globe. But we're seeing that all it is the same old Bush-Cheney politics being played out now through Obama, Black Bush as I label him, with what would be an iron fist with a velvet glove, peace prize of this president. It's all in the name of peace. It always is. It was in the name of the Lord. Once upon a time, the conquistadors. It's in the name of this and that and the other. Why, you got to go rape and pillage and steal people's stuff, huh? Sure. All right, in a case that could set national precedent in the nation, the 3-judge Michigan Court of Appeals panel hears arguments today about whether a pastor's testimony related to a possible confession in a child sexual assault case may be used in court. Kind of interesting there. Yeah, very interesting there. My personal take on that would be as follows. If someone has vital information, even if it is a preacher under the circumstances, if they know that someone is being victimized and sexually assaulted as such, being a child, in my opinion and belief, it should be the responsibility, even under the circumstances of that being a non-disclosed private conversation. The point is, children don't deserve to be molested, and somebody has to look after the interest of that child, as obviously until they're 18 they have no rights of their own. So who's going to stand up for the interest and needs of that child? So in this case, I agree with the preacher that someone needed to hear about that when it comes to the child being molested. So hopefully this panel of judges will understand that and whatnot as well. After more than 2 decades of drilling, Russian scientists have finally reached the surface of a gigantic freshwater hidden lake in Antarctica, which is believed to be under miles of ice for some 20 million years. Lake Vostok, which is similar to the area of that of Lake Ontario, 2.4 miles or 3.8 kilometers below the surface. Lake Vostok is warmed underneath by what would be geothermal activity. And this is really interesting. You have this prehistoric lake that's been frozen in time, and this will give scientists of modern day an understanding of a lot of the elements going back to predating of what would be the last ice age, maybe several, that ultimately we're able to see and understand things from a microbial and other point of view to help us understand of what would be the aspects of who and what we are and where we came from, but also as a way of studying right here on what would be our own planet is a precursor and a sample for what there is to come for other places that we want to eventually be able to explore and do manned missions to, such as Mars and potentially moons of Saturn and other places out in the cosmos. So this is a good stepping stone and starting point to kind of give us a sample and to warm up and get involved under the circumstances. So I love science, and Russia loves it too. We used to like it once upon a time as a nation. Los Angeles spends $489,000 of whose money? Your money. That's right, bailout money on a city yacht to be more environmentally friendly. 480 grand? 489 grand? It's already starting to sound rather environmentally unfriendly to me as it is, just the debt. All right, and bailout money. So that's real interesting, and that's under what will be congressional investigation right now. So, interesting. Bristol University glaciologist Professor Jonathan Bamber was a part of a research team in the Himalayas recently. That's right, he discovered that the area all the way to Tian Shan, which is the border of China, has lost absolutely no ice whatsoever in the past decade. Global what? Warming? I don't think so. That's bunk. That's right. Science is showing improving. Global warming is a fraud. It's a hoax. Just like anything else in the toilet, Al Gore and company, just flush them. Get rid of them. They're idiots. They're in bed with the British. Environmentalism. Farmers in what would be European Union who claim more subsidies than they should are now being spied on by predator drones. What do you think about that? In a BBC article discussed February 7th, 2012 by Lawrence Peter. We got British Special Forces on the ground in Syria, directing and aiding rebel fighters. In a similar fashion to Libyan rebels, how they were aided in the overthrow of Colonel Gaddafi, according to a report by the Israeli intelligence outfit Debka File. Now we have another article, and this also goes back to the BBC and good old London. We always talk about England a lot on here, and we got plenty more videos that are relating, let me assure you. So we have what would be a news article by Adam Liptak, interviewing professors of law of what would be David Law of Washington University of St. Louis and Mila Versteege of University of Virginia. And in this article, which is absolutely excuse me, this Adam Liptak, this article is not, I apologize, this is not from what would be London. This was actually from New York City, but directed from the circumstances of London from abroad, that they support the take of what would be these constitutional attorneys as what would be professors of law, as they came together for a joint collaboration in a study and have presented these statements in collaboration with one another of what would be their interpretation of our law. It goes on to state in the interview, quote, "The United States Constitution is terse and old and guarantees relatively few rights." They go on to say that the Bill of Rights of the former evil empire, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, was much better than ours. That's what they say. And they say, "We guarantee freedom of speech and press. Big deal," unquote, it says. And it goes on to state, and, quote, "The Canadian Charter is both more expansive and absolute." So here we go. We got professors of law undermining the Constitution. We got people saying it's old, outdated, obsolete. Now what's worse than professors of law teaching our youth this? Well, it could be a president that's supposed to be perhaps a former law professor, specifically Constitution, a law professor that is going against so many rights of the law and going against the Constitution. That could be worse. Another thing could be worse as well is then Adam Liptak and his two stooges would be as well having Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg stating the same thing and undermining our Constitution. So, and that is exactly where we're going next with this next article video here for you that we're going to put on the screen in just a moment. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Supreme Court Justice, recently went to Egypt, was on the television, Egyptian news television, and was interviewed in an article and discusses how our Constitution is old, outdated, obsolete, and if she were drafting a Constitution in these times in which we live in now, 2012, she would not, quote, use the United States Constitution, unquote, to begin to draft such a thing. So here we go with this next interview with what would be Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
It's a very inspiring time that you have overthrown a dictator and that you are striving to achieve a genuine democracy. So I think people in the United States are hoping that this transition will work and that there will genuinely be a government of, by, and for the people. I met with the head of the Election Commission. I think that the first step has gone well, that elections have been held for the lower house, that everyone has considered to be free and fair. So that's one milestone. And the next will be the drafting of a constitution. Now, I cannot speak about what the Egyptian experience should be because I'm operating under a rather old constitution. The United States, in comparison to Egypt, is a very new nation. And yet we have the oldest written constitution still in force in the world. Let me say first that a constitution as important as it is will mean nothing unless the people are yearning for liberty and freedom. If the people don't care, then the best constitution in the world won't make any difference. So the spirit of liberty has to be in the population. And then the Constitution, first, it should safeguard basic fundamental human rights. Like our First Amendment is the right to speak freely, to publish freely without the government as a censor, you should certainly be aided by all the Constitution writing that has gone on since the end of World War II. I would not look to the U.S. Constitution if I were drafting a Constitution in the year 2012. I might look at the Constitution of South Africa. That was a deliberate attempt to have a fundamental instrument of government that embraced basic human rights, had an independent judiciary. It really is, I think, a great piece of work that was done. Much more recently than the U.S. Constitution, Canada has a Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It dates from 1982. You would almost certainly look at the European Convention on Human Rights. So yes, why not take advantage of what there is elsewhere in the world?
Now that's pretty scary, you have to admit. What I'm doing around here at nospinnewssource.com, and you're going to see this in the future as well, is instead of just sitting here listening to my commentary, like we started out beginning to do the first few shows back in June, July, August, that what we're doing now, besides coming at you streaming in 1080p full high definition video, which we're delighted to brag about, by the way, besides that, we want to show you more evidence, more proof. We want to show you the words by what would be Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg herself. We want to show you the words of Obama himself, the Queen of England and her prince, her royal consort, the one that would like to see the world's reduction population down to around 1 billion or so. So what we're doing is, instead of just telling you this is the facts, we're showing you where you can go to acquire this information yourself, and we're showing and providing you with what would be the actual evidence. And that's what you need. That's what you need. And that's what I need to do in order to do my job fully and successfully, is to show you, add the pieces of the puzzle so eventually it'll come together. And let me tell you, on pretty much a weekly basis, somebody new is coming up to me, or someone on a new angle from the past, and saying, hey Kari, I'm sorry for laughing at you. I didn't understand this or that or whatever, but now I do. And I'm realizing you are right about these factors. So I'm going to provide you with so much information and evidence, you will be forced to see that there's a British Empire, or you'll be forced to run away from nospinnewssource.com in reality period and hide under a rock. But don't worry, even if you hide from the British Empire, the truth in the British Empire will come and find you. Trust me. So we're going to continue with the quote of the day by George Orwell, who wrote the book 1984, which I highly recommend that you read. That's right, I'm calling on you. I'm giving you a lesson, homework project. Read George Orwell's 1984. It sounds real extreme, real out there, conspiracy theory, but it's starting to sound more and more like the day and times that we're coming into right now. So, George Orwell stated, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. And it is. Moving onward. American Airlines announces 13,000 jobs to be completely cut, and the closure of what would be Fort Worth, Texas maintenance hub. NBC article. We also have what would be the State of the Union address. Barack Obama said that